Song, and today I will be reading to you from Sticky Notes and Trinkets by RainbowStar_772. That's me. Now, on to Chapter 18, Concerning Notes and Complementary Flowers. America sighed as he finally escaped Mr. Weatherly's classroom. He then started towards his locker so he could pick up his textbooks for the next class. He was honestly happy to get out of that class, and excited to see Miss Dackerman. As he walked closer to his locker, he decided to reflect on his choice gift for Russia. He wasn't sure what he'd been thinking when he chose roses. He should have done tulips or orchids, not the most romantic flower known to man. Hell, he'd also gone with colors with meanings that... Goddamn, did he feel stupid. He wished he could travel back in time and shake himself by his shoulders so that he didn't do that. He shook his head and let out a little laugh as he saw the sticky note on his locker. It was cute and a little bit funny. Of course, his secret admirer, as he decided to call them, would write something like that. It said, "If you were a fruit, you would be a pineapple." It was corny, but it still made his day a lot better. He stuck the sticky note to the inside of his binder before opening his locker. He went from happy to upset after seeing what had been placed in his locker. It was a bouquet of spider lilies. He didn't have to check the note to know it was from Yui. He knew she didn't like him for whatever reason, and this was her way of saying that he was better off dead. Her sister, Akio, was a sort of friend of his. She said it was because her sister saw him as competition, whatever that meant. He took the flowers out and looked them over. They were beautiful, but the intentions behind them were not. He threw them away. He wasn't lost to be mourned. He was still alive. He tried to shake away those thoughts before grabbing what he needed and heading to his favorite teacher's class. He settled himself in the desk and waited for the class to start. It made him feel a little better when Miss Dackerman came by for her way of doing roll call. He couldn't help but make a mental note of Russia, who looked a little puzzled. He didn't linger on that for too long before going back to listening to Miss Dackerman while he waited for the work to be handed out. Soon he received the work. A crumpled up note hit him in the face. He reluctantly smoothed it out and started reading it, only to wish he hadn't. "You are going to hell, you..." He stopped reading after that. He wasn't interested in reading another insult or slur at the moment. He crumpled up the note again, tossing it in the trash can behind him before going to start the work, only to be startled when another note hit his desk. He reluctantly unraveled it to read it. The person was worried about him, having written, "Are you okay?" Sad face. He knew their handwriting by now, and was honestly glad to not see yet another shitty note. He wrote down a reply. "I'm alright, nothing I'm not used to," which he hoped wouldn't worry them further. He shook his head and went back to finishing the work packet, pushing it to the corner of his desk once he'd finished it. After it was done, he pulled out his sketchbook and started to draw Akio. He drew Akio with the soft little smile she could usually be seen with. She was one of the nicer students, which wasn't saying much if he was honest. The bar was low enough to be a tripping hazard in hell. His standards for kind were too low for his comfort. He sighed and shook the thought from his head, before glancing curiously at Russia, noticing that Russia was wearing not only the bracelet, but also the knitted scarf. He flushed a little, but smiled, glad that Russia enjoyed the gifts. After the class was over, he got up and stretched before heading to his locker, opening it to put his books in it. He then headed to the library to have his lunch of a small salad. He quickly ate and finished his food before throwing it away in a trash can and picking up a book to read for the rest of the lunch break. He read it, found himself getting a little sucked into the world of the story of the unlikely duo of detectives, though he put it down and made a mental note of where he was when he last checked. He could get a PDF of the book later, but for now, he needed to get to gym. He put the book back and scampered off to the locker room, pulling his cheer uniform out of his bag and heading into a stall of the locker room to change into it. Even though he had the sleeves fully covering him, he felt exposed in it. He left the stall and took his bag, starting towards the gymnasium. People who'd be leaving for games would leave early, so there was a free day on Friday until they left. Then, goodness knows what happens after they were gone. He made himself comfortable while he waited for gym to start. At the moment, he was alone, but that could quickly change. He wished that he'd brought the blanket with him, then considered for a second. Maybe he'd left one in his gym locker. With that thought, he hopped back up and ran back to the locker room. Upon arrival in front of his locker, he opened it to check, finding himself extremely excited to find a soft, fluffy, galaxy-patterned blanket. He took it and ran back to the gymnasium. He settled himself and waited for the others to arrive. The first he saw was Russia, who was shortly followed by Cuba, both of whom seemed to be having a conversation. Soon it started, and as per usual, several people were late. But regardless, Coach Falk started calling roll. Soon enough, the free time started for those who arrived on time, so America went over to the bleachers and made himself comfortable on them. He settled with a blanket wrapped around himself quite tightly. He drew until the announcements that all students in cheer, marching band, and the football team were to get everything together and head to the buses. He got up and kept the blanket wrapped around himself as he started towards the bus, while he made his way to the bus that both marching band and cheer would be on. He went to a spot and settled down, keeping his bag on his lap even though he would prefer no one to sit beside him. He closed his eyes and waited for the inevitable, only to feel the bus start moving, with no indication of anyone sitting beside him. He opened his eyes and looked around, relaxing when he found that he was still alone. He took out his phone and headphones, opting to turn on some music. The first song to come on was Keep You Safe by the Crane Wives, which he couldn't help but hum along to quietly. He closed his eyes as he listened to the music, allowing the time to melt away. Soon enough, he was putting his headphones and phone away and getting off the bus. As he was getting up, he turned around and noticed that Russia had been sitting in the seat behind him and was still seemingly listening to music. He waved to catch the others' attention before scampering off to go do some warm-ups and practice with the rest of the cheer team. After warm-ups, they were just waiting for the game to start. After a while, it was time to perform, which he and his team quickly did, happily going through the routine. Once it was over, they made their way out of the way so that the marching band could do their thing. He opted to watch, and then realized how good Russia looked in that uniform, and couldn't help but find him attractive. He had mentally noted that Russia was definitely his type, but this just confirmed it. America startled near the end when someone slapped his ass. He backed away and made himself comfortable as he could in a corner. He and his team would be out there in a bit to do some quick cheer for touchdowns. He slowly left the corner after the marching band was back in the area, as the game was going to start soon. And that's the end of this chapter. I hope you enjoyed. Anyway, I'd like to invite you to join the Discord, which is linked down in the description below. That being said, I hope you have a nice rest of your day, night, or whatever it is for you. Just enjoy your time. And I will see you tomorrow.